Hi folks, welcome to week 4. In this week we're looking at the working phase of the helping relationship. We'll explore the change process and meeting clients where they are. We'll also explore the strengths perspective more deeply and understand how to help clients draw on strengths to bring about change. We have an introductory video, transcript of that video. In terms of the learning objectives, you'll be able to demonstrate an understanding of the change process, as well as demonstrate an understanding of how to mobilize clients' strengths to bring about change. Looking at the learning resources, we have the Prochaska, Di Clemente, and Norcross article In Search of How People Change, Applications to Addictive Behaviors. And this is a particularly important article in looking at the trans-theoretical model of change, which refers to the stages of pre-contemplation, contemplation, up through action and maintenance, for those of you who are familiar with that. So I think this article is particularly important in terms of looking at that change process. The other two articles you'll be reading this week are by a premier scholar, Dennis Salibi, who talks about the strengths perspective. Oftentimes, students and others talk about strengths theory, but this is really a perspective. It's not a theory. A perspective is something that's broader in scope and can be applied across situations, across clients, across organizations and systems, and can be used with any theory. And in fact, as social workers, looking at strengths, whether they be client strengths, system strengths, organizational strengths, strengths in communities, and so on and so forth, is an essential skill. And being able to reframe problems from a strengths perspective is critical. So these two articles give you an introduction to the strengths perspective. And it's not just about seeing positives or seeing things that people are good at, but also looking at issues, looking at problems and saying, how are clients growing and changing and developing and creating a better organization of self in their lives. So I think these two articles will be particularly important going forward. You have a post prompt for preparing for the initial biopsychosocial assessment paper. So in this prompt, this will begin preparing and helping you to prepare and think about your biopsychosocial assessment paper, drawing from your thinking on working with difference and diverse populations, as well as ethics. Answer the following questions. Diversity challenges. So here you're going to think about the client you're using in your initial assessment video and paper, and describe any challenge you faced or will face in regard to the influence of diversity. This could include race, class, gender, sexual orientation, and or developmental disabilities. How did or how will you resolve the issue? How does cultural humility factor into your thinking about work with the client? And secondly, ethical issues, thinking about the client you're using in the initial assessment video and paper. Describe any ethical issues you did or may encounter in your work with the client. These issues might be boundary issues, issues of confidentiality, self-determination, conflict with managed care, and discuss whether you were able or would be able to resolve the issue or could envision a way to resolve it based on these particular areas of ethics. And then in your response prompt, you'll follow up with one classmate. What have you learned from their post and what could you add to their learning? Provide constructive feedback that will aid them in preparing for next week's assignments. Same instructions for all of your discussion forums henceforth. And then you'll have this initial biopsychosocial assessment video, which is due a week from today. I'm going to go right to it. I would just point out that while it's a video and doing videos is stressful, it's also 10 minutes. It's a short video, so I hope that it will be manageable for you. Going right to that assignment, due next Sunday, each of you will create a 10-minute segment of an interview with a mock client demonstrating the skills in the beginning stage needed to engage with and assess the client. The mock client will be used both for this video as well as the assessment paper. So in step 1, you'll select someone to role play a client as your interviewee, obtaining written permission to record the interview. This individual could be a classmate, a family member, a friend, or an acquaintance. However, no one under the age of 18 may be used in the role play, regardless of whether you're able to get this person's permission. So even if the mock client is a child, it still should not be, the person that you're interviewing should not be under the age of 18. They should be role-playing the child. You can choose to work with a fellow classmate to complete this assignment, but you'll not be formally placed in groups. Each of you will be required to submit a separate video. For any individual participating as your mock client, obtain written informed consent. You'll need to upload the signed written consent form to the appropriate assignment upload page under Major Projects and Assignments. You can use this form or you can use another form to obtain written consent. In step 2, drawing on the sample biopsychosocial assessment form as a guide. So this is a link to a sample. You can use that as your guide. It doesn't need to be verbatim. You can make changes to it. Record a 10-minute videotaped segment of your work with your mock client. Regardless of who you're interviewing in the role play, the details of the case must be made up. So don't ask a friend about a real past trauma or a condition that they've experienced. Make sure that it's something that they're role-playing and not their own experiences. Follow the guidelines in structuring your case presentation. A 1 to 2 minute introduction. Briefly describe your client, their presenting problem, and the skills you'll be demonstrating. And then an 8 to 9 minute role play in which you display the use of the skills. So in terms of the skills, you're just going to identify them in part 1 of this, in the 1 to 2 minute introduction. You're not going to go into depth, just say what skills you'll be using based on things that you've read about in the Poulin and or Schulman texts. And then in the second part, in the 8 to 9 minute role play, based on the biopsychosocial assessment form and your understanding of the client, interview them, demonstrating relevant skills, the ones that you've identified in the 1 to 2 minute introduction. You don't need to use all of the skills. However, don't use a canned script. Make sure that it's natural or as natural as possible. In step 3, you'll upload the video to MediaSpace. Don't upload it to YouTube. In week 1, you did a MediaSpace test, so you should all be able to get that video up on MediaSpace. Please let me know, or let our support center know if you're having any problems with that. And as you can see, in terms of the rubric, it's out of 10 points. And the main elements are really about how well you conducted the interview and your interview facilitation style. So part 1 is about appearance, demeanor, style, public speaking skills. Part 2 is attending skills. So how well did you listen to the client? How well did you tune into them and what they were struggling with? Part 2, in the next part, evidence of developing a collaborative relationship to support change. Next, how well did you use empathy to join with the client? How well did you connect with the client? How did you use both verbal and nonverbal empathy to join with the client, make a connection with them? And then lastly, the evidence of the practice skills you've identified. How did you show that in the interview that you did? And again, this is out of 10 points. Please reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns about this, or if you run into any challenges. And then the last piece of this week is to please do the mid-semester evaluation. It's anonymous, and this will help me make any necessary improvements to your course experience before the course ends. So I would really appreciate your feedback about the course. Okay, folks, take care. Have a great week. I look forward to going over your work.